Well, what's up, everybody? It's Andy Lindahl. Hoping that you're having a great night. Hoping that everything's going well for you guys. I'm actually recording. I guess I'm saying night because it is the night for me right now. And I thought I'd get another After Hours episode up. I'm sorry for those that listen religiously. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. And it certainly wasn't my intent to have us have this long delay, but my life's been a little bit crazy. A lot of you know that, I've been going through, I've been jobless for a while. I haven't had my radio show anyway. And because of that, things have just been really interesting. I guess just to let you know, first off, I don't have a guest with me this week, which is too bad. Excuse me, but I've been trying to get connected with all sorts of the usual crew, from Jeb Putz here to Jason Hirsch to Mark Stout. And unfortunately, none of our schedules seem to be syncing up. I am giving a run at working at the Colorado Media School. Working maybe too strong a word. I've been shadowing, just trying to figure out if it's something that I think I'd want to do. And if I wanted to do it, I basically would start in June, trying to figure other work out as well. I know a lot of people have been asking me, am I going to get back into radio? I still really can't give you that answer yet. Basically, I had a period of time that I have to sit out, that I can't even really try to go after a radio job. You can kind of have some conversations with people, but nobody really wants to be serious with you till your no-compete clause is up. And so I don't know who's really serious and if they really want me, frankly. A couple people have expressed, couple stations, I guess I should say, have expressed interest, but doesn't mean that they're really going to want to do anything when it gets down to brass tacks. And so I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to be in radio. I don't know if I'm going to be teaching. I don't, I've got a couple things going outside of the world of broadcasting, but I just don't know if my heart's going to be in it. So I'm in this massive holding pattern. And I guess as we get towards the end of May, and maybe I'll start finding out who's really serious about what. One of the job opportunities that I'm kind of interested in that isn't radio, they've got their own concerns about a guy starting in that field so late. So it's an interesting time when you're trying to find employment. But anyway, I'm getting to the end of where I'm going to have to start figuring it out. So that's been part of it. I've been coaching lacrosse, which was a lot of fun. So we had our end of the year. There was the terrible shooting at the STEM school that put off a barbecue that basically I had to do a makeup barbecue for the end of the year for the kids, where we kind of do a big banquet and give awards and all that kind of stuff. So that ate up one of my podcasting nights. And it just was a hectic last couple weeks of the season with these guys, just because we had so many games to make up, and Colorado and most of the country has just not had a good spring. So anyway, it's been wet weather. We've had games to make up, so on and so forth. So I had really, I haven't worried too much about the fact that, I've got to start figuring out what it is I am going to do for work, because I was coaching lacrosse, and really, if I had it my way, I would coach full time. I wish it wasn't so hard to get into coaching. Now, I was just running our JV squad, so we had a good year, but I can't say I was competing at even the varsity level here. But I would love to coach, honestly. I think a lot of people probably maybe can relate to that are listening. But if I had it my way, I love radio, don't get me wrong. I have a great passion for it, and wish I hadn't sat out these last 3 months, quite honestly. But you don't always get to make those choices. And even though I'm kind of still holding out hope that maybe there'll be a place for me even somewhere around Denver or out of state if I have to, I don't know if that's ultimately the way it's going to go. I don't know if that's how it's going to work out for me. So there's a lot of things that I got to get figured out here coming up, but all that led into a 2-week hiatus from the podcast. And again, for those that listen, I apologize. I am going to get a Jeb Putz here podcast going soon. I am going to get, honestly, I've talked to Chris Harris, and Chris right now wants to chill while he tries to figure out his contract, but he said once it's all figured out, he's happy to talk to me, and he's in Dallas anyway. Excuse me. So we couldn't even have done the podcast if I wanted to, because right now, if I were to, I guess, decide to take a job, or if I decided the teaching thing was for me, again, I'd be at the Colorado Media School and they'd actually have a studio where maybe I could start recording a podcast and using the phone to get the podcast done. But that would also, be built around when are students using it. I'm not certainly going to go in there and hog up time for students. And again, I guess I don't quite know how that all is going to work out at this point either. I don't know, I don't even know what they'd pay me. Would it be enough? I just basically had a couple friends, Anthony Rodriguez, the old board op for and producer for Stout, for Crockett and Stout. He's working over there, so I just was like, hey, do you mind if I come just kind of check things out and see if I'd even be interested in this? And, he just told me to come watch for a week or maybe two and just decide, just see what the life is like. And so I don't know, we'll see. It's been my first week this week. I've been there a couple days, and I don't know. We'll see how it goes, man. There's a lot of cool students and kids that want to do this thing, and talk to some of them. Matter of fact, I'm recording this on a Wednesday, so I talked to some of them today about how you do the podcasting and stuff. I guess my question is, as a teacher, as you put classes and stuff like that together, would be, do I have enough to say to do this every day? So anyway, that's kind of the update of where I'm at the podcast. No matter what I choose to do, and if it's not in radio, I plan to keep the podcast going, so I hope you'll plan to keep listening, because we'll have a lot of the familiar voices that that keep coming on. Whiskey Rob, my buddy from Stranahan's, has a great story to tell. I'm not allowed to tell it yet, but it's pretty epic, and I'm pretty happy for the story Rob is going to tell when it's time to tell. So that'll be on the podcast when it's time to tell for sure. I want to connect with some of the bands. Lucero's coming to town. I don't know if I can get a hold of John Stubblefield again, but definitely John Stubblefield's their bass player for this band. Hopefully you're familiar with Lucero. Great guys. They've really, really blown up since they were on my show on KOA all those years ago. Touring all the time. They put out 2 or 3 albums since. One of them, All a Man Should Be, is, I don't know, it's just a fantastic album. I think that's it. That might be one of the songs. But anyway, it's a great song. It's a great album, and I'd recommend you pick them up. Baby Don't You Want Me is one of my favorite songs if you want to check them out. But anyway, John's the bass player. Really cool dude. Met them. They're out of Nashville, or they're out of Tennessee. Actually, they're out of Memphis, I believe. They used to make fun of Jay Cutler. They came on the show a few times. They hated Jay Cutler. They apparently knew some stories from when he was at Vanderbilt, so they used to make fun of him. They love their Memphis Grizzlies basketball, and so we'll see if John doesn't come on as they play Red Rocks coming up here later on in May. A lot to cover since the last time I talked to you guys. I used to do a podcast solo for the Broncos, so hopefully, I know that you guys are probably used to, if you're listening to After Hours, you're probably used to getting the version with the guests. I'm sorry there is no guest, but again, I just felt like I got to get a podcast up. It's been too long, and it just seems like my schedule just is not jiving with what everybody's got going on. With Hershey, I'm sure Jason Hershey can probably understand. He's doing a lot of baseball instruction, and this is the time of year where it really picks up for him. Stouter's been doing some freelance stuff and working for AT&T here and there, and we just haven't had a chance to connect, and all the other cool things I wanted to do just haven't come together quite yet. Daniel Schlereth's back in town. Kind of got a raw job from the Red Sox. He wants to come on, so we'll get him on before he possibly goes out to play independent league baseball. We'll have to see what he wants to do, but we got all those guys coming up. But anyway, we've had the NFL draft, obviously. I haven't even given you my thoughts. Love what the Broncos did early on. I can't tell you that I love the Drew Lock scenario. We'll see how it works out. I'll tell you this. I heard the kid's first press conference, and I'm a big fan of what he had to say. But, again, some of the people that I trust when it comes, there's work to do on his throwing motion. And there's work to do on the accuracy. And, I love John Elway. And John Elway was a hell of a quarterback. I guess I just don't understand why, if I don't really love a guy, why John seems to, and that's the guy they draft. Now, Brock Osweiler grew on me, and I think Brock Osweiler made himself into a really good quarterback, but I was with CU and doing the CU broadcast when Brock Osweiler was playing at ASU and happened to play the Broncos in college, or happened to play, the Buffs in college. And I was on the field, and I didn't love what I saw to Brock early on. Because Brock threw a great deep ball, very accurate, but he used to throw so low. He hadn't fixed a lot of his throwing motion, and unfortunately he went back. He broke the fix, if you will, his second time around in Denver, and certainly did it in Houston, where he was long striding too much, throwing sidearm, changed his arm angle, low throws. That's what got it batted. Everybody can never understand, how does a guy that tall get a ball batted? Well, when you step too far and Everything's kind of screwed up. You become a smaller quarterback. He went from the 6'7" guy to a 6'2" guy. He was Drew Brees' height by the time he got done with arm release and big steps and all that other stuff. And I can remember Brian Zanders telling me before the draft, if we draft this kid, we think we can fix him. We think we can make him accurate. Well, they fixed him for a bit, but again, the fix didn't stay, Unfortunately, even though I know there's big fans of Tim Tebow, his fixes never stayed. When everything went wrong, when the shit hit the fan, so to speak, you go back to just throwing how your body's always been throwing. It's muscle memory. It's, some guys, I know Aaron Rodgers did a tweak in the 4 years he sat on the bench. I was told he did some minor tweak that turned him into the accurate, great passer that he was, but it wasn't a massive change. It was a little subtle thing. So, as I've been told by some of the people that have seen it up close, there's work for Drew Lock to do, and he's not very accurate at times. I was told there was one ball that was incredibly off. It was a great deep ball, but it was nowhere near the receiver. And again, that's just what some of his tape showed. I watched a lot of cut-ups of his games where the cut-ups where you see every throw. I didn't watch every play of the game, but I saw every throw that he made in the game. They're available on YouTube. Go to his college tape. There's too many times where I just don't think the accuracy's there, and that makes me nervous. It's the NFL. It's tight windows. They're putting more guys in coverage. We're spreading guys out. You've got to be able to hit into tight windows. You can't throw deep balls down the sideline to single cover receiver with no safety in the area all the time. It's not going to work. Teams aren't going to give that to you. And if you don't believe me, go and look how they played Lamar Jackson. For guys that aren't accurate, go look at what they did to Lamar Jackson in the playoff game, okay? They're going to make you throw over a linebacker and underneath the safety. And you're going to have to do it in time, and you're going to have to do it in a portion of the field where you're maybe a little bit uncomfortable. And again, it's not, I've said this so many times, it's not about being this great deep ball thrower. I know we all love the highlight of the long bomb, but any quarterback worth his salt makes his money by moving the chains. Tom Brady is deadly because Tom Brady consistently picks up third downs. And whether it's 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 15, much like Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers and all, and Drew Brees and all the greats that we could talk about, those guys continue to be able to make throws that pick up first downs. And they keep the drive going. And they don't have to get big chunk yardage. They don't have to rely on big plays. That was one of the things, as much as I hate to say it, that made Patrick Mahomes so dangerous this past year. Patrick Mahomes is good at making throws that got you first downs, that kept drives alive, that kept your offense on the field. It's what I don't have to tell you as Bronco fans, that's what's been lacking. That's what's been lacking. It sucks that the Broncos have struggled so mightily to be able to get guys on the field that can continue to pick up first downs. Case Keenum struggled mightily to keep the drives alive. Unfortunately, Trevor Siemian in his second year struggled mightily to keep the drive going. Paxton Lynch, Brock Osweiler, all these guys could not, over the last 3 years, at least in the Vance Joseph era, they could not keep the drives going. Now, Trevor was good at it in the first 8 or 9 games of his Bronco career under Gary Kubiak. Then it all fell off the table. And December in particular, back in 2016, was just not kind. But it's been a long time since the Broncos have had an offense that consistently stay on the field all game long and make it tough on the opposing defense. Now, for whatever reason, there were times last year where Case Keenum would get going in the second quarter, or he'd get going in the fourth quarter, or he'd sporadically help the team put drives together. Go back to the San Francisco game, where all of a sudden they decided maybe they would play a little bit of offense, maybe they would figure some things out, maybe they would, but it even took 4th downs for them to stay on the field that way. So to me, I know there's been a lot of hullabaloo this week about Joe Flacco and the mentoring comment. I'm so tired of the mentoring thing, and I get it. I'm not saying be a bad teammate. Look, I'm doing it right now. If I choose to go into teaching, I'm going to be trying to help create the next class of young people who'd have to start over at the low end of the salary spectrum that could take my job. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to try to help kids figure out how to do it. But you know what? I'm not going to dedicate, if I were to go back into radio, I'm not going to dedicate my life to showing these kids how to come take my job all the time. I don't think Joe Flacco is going to be a jerk. I don't think he's going to shut down questions from Drew Lock. I don't think he's ever going to tell him, it's not like he's never going to tell him, hey, do this differently or look for this throw differently. But the reality is, Joe Flacco and any other veteran quarterback in here, I got news for you, man. Peyton Manning wasn't getting too excited about trying to teach Brock Osweiler. Peyton Manning wanted his ass on the field. Joe Flacco is doing what Joe Flacco needs to do. Joe Flacco, you know what I want? Especially the more I hear about some of what Locke is no sure thing. So you know what I want right now? I want a guy that can perform. Now, you know what? If we're 5 years from now and Joe's picked up a second contract and he's taken him to some playoff success, maybe even a Super Bowl, and he's still pulling the old I'm not going to help anybody, yeah, you know what? Now you're a jerk. But Joe Flacco's not established here. Joe Flacco's not Phillip Rivers in this town. He's not Ben Roethlisberger in this town. He's not the guy that's been with the franchise forever. Look, John Elway wasn't all hell-bent on helping Brian Griese. Maybe Bubby Brister did. I mean, to me, if you want a guy that helps a young guy develop, go find yourself a good veteran backup and let him try to explain things. The starter needs to worry about getting ready to be the starter on Sunday, period. The starter needs to worry about being the starter on Sunday. You want to know one of the reasons why Trevor Siemian actually ended up being okay? Because he had Brock Osweiler around. Because he was in a room with a couple veteran guys and Peyton Manning and Brock Osweiler. Okay? That's part of the reason. So don't, we just need to stop with this whole, hey, when are you going to teach the young guy how to take your job? We're all real excited about this young quarterback who we're hoping will be the 15-year answer, and we're already done with you. Don't expect a good response to that. And the players that are out there saying, don't be a bad team, I get it. Don't be a bad teammate. Like I said, if the kid has a question, don't just totally shut him down. But you know what? I also don't expect the guy to have to give every secret in his arsenal. Because guess what? Bronco fans, I hope you're not too upset about it because you know what? Joe Flacco wants to be your quarterback the next 5 to 7, if not 10 years. That's what he wants to do. You know why he's not helping him? Because he wants to be here. He wants this to be his home. He wants this to be his job. He wants to have enough success that you guys aren't calling for Drew Lock. So you know what? I got no issue with that right now. Now, if Joe Flacco was 40 years old and, like I said, had some 7, 8, 9-year run and we were good to him and he was good to us and we all enjoyed it and we know the end is coming, you know what? That's maybe the time where I expect you to show a guy the ropes. That's the time where I expect you to go into mentor mode, okay? But for all of us to get all bent out of shape because a guy wants to establish that this is his final stop, that this is the last job, look, whatever job I take next, whatever it is, I hope I'm there 20 years. Okay, I'm coming up on 45. I hope I close out my career. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to look for another job, okay? It sucks. It's not fun. It's nerve-wracking. There's a lot of uncertainty. Am I going to keep my house? Am I going to keep my quality of life for my family going, okay? So I guess I can relate to Joe Flacco right now. Joe doesn't want to move. I mean, $18 million or not, I don't care who you are or how much you're making. And I get it. The blue-collar guys, you can write in, you can tweet at me, you can tell me, hey, with that amount of money, I've got enough money not to worry about things. Good for you. The reality is there's a lot of common things among just human beings that we all want. And one of those things is stability. I want to know that I'm not moving again next year. I want to know that my family, if they move out here, it's not going to be for 6, 7 months and then we're off to look for something else. I want to know my kids aren't going to be starting in a new school, or maybe they spend one school year here and that's that. That's what I want to know. So let's not hate Joe Flacco because he's not really looking to give this job up. I mean, again, Joe Flacco's in his early 30s, man. The way guys are playing football now, who's to say Joe Flacco couldn't give you 7, 8, or 9 years? I said this about Case Keenum. If things work out, you could feasibly see a decade of football out of Joe Flacco if you keep the dang offensive line intact for him. And so honestly, part of my problem with the Drew Lock pick was that Texas A&M center was sitting right there. You know what? And I like Connor McGovern. But I think Connor McGovern, to me, I like him as a guard. Okay? Now, you get Dalton Reiser, the kid from A&M, and Connor McGovern. Well, now I got a young core to shore up the middle that I'm feeling pretty darn good about. And maybe, who was it? Elijah Alexander or whoever we had? Can't remember. The kid playing last year, maybe he ends up being a player. Or Elijah Wilkinson, I should say. Elijah Alexander was a linebacker back in the day. Maybe Elijah Wilkinson beats out Connor McGovern. I don't care. But I know this. I need options, I need depth, and I need a good middle of the line for whoever the quarterback is. That's Drew Lock or otherwise. Had they gotten Drew Lock in the 3rd round, then I would have been okay. I don't care. I know it wasn't the first pick. I know you traded back. I know you did all this stuff. But the bottom line for me is, look at the Brock Osweiler, Peyton Manning thing. That's basically what you're hoping to recreate, I guess. But I got news for you. Hopefully Joe comes in here, owns the job. Drew doesn't sniff the field for at least 2 years. That's what I was saying with Brock Osweiler, and I wanted Manning as long as I could have Manning. Well, guess what? I know Joe. For me right now, I'll take as much Joe Flacco as long as it's good Joe Flacco. I don't need, you know what, if you can give me 5 years, I mean, any more in the NFL with the free agency and the change and stuff. My buddy Mark was talking about it on his morning show the other day, honestly. 5 years is kind of the window. That's a solid window with how much change goes on. I can live with a 5-year window. You got 4 out of Peyton Manning. You know, if not for the injury, maybe you get the 5th. But think about that. It felt like the Manning era was forever. It was only 4 years. It was only 2012 through 2015. So, you know, but it felt like a long time because you had a lot of winning. If Joe Flacco can give me something like that, I don't expect as much winning as we had under Manning. I don't expect, you know, a lights-out offense that sets records and all that other stuff. But I expect a better offense. I expect a functional offense. I hope, a more balanced football team. I expect some complementary football. I expect a guy that's not going to freak out when we go into Kansas City and melt in the moment. So I'm hoping that's a guy that can keep the Kansas City offense off the field in Kansas City for a bit. You know, I'm excited about some of their additions. I'm excited about the Ohio State defensive tackle to see what he can do. It sounds like they may have a player in Justin Holland, the Oregon kid. They got that Kansas linebacker who quietly could be really good. I mean, they've got some intriguing prospects. And again, you know, if you could have gotten Drew Lock a little bit later, great. Now, maybe you don't. And John said he was the highest rated quarterback on the board. So everybody's saying it's a great pick for value. Well, it's a great pick if he ultimately plays for you. But ultimately, for me, I'd have taken the center that I think would have been getting on the field a lot quicker than Drew Lock. And maybe that's just my problem with it. Second-round picks are still premium picks. I still expect starters in the second round. I don't know that I expect a Pro Bowler, but I'm hoping. But I'm expecting a starter. If we're really going on the scale of what the picks, doesn't really become a crapshoot till the 4th round for me. 3rd round better be another solid starter for you too, or I don't think you're picking very good. So to me, you got a better shot with the way this roster is constructed in the addition of Joe Flacco. You had a better shot of adding that center and him getting on the field, okay? But you didn't, and that's how it worked out. It is what it is. You know, I'm going to root for Drew Lock to prove me wrong. I'm going to root for Drew Lock to hopefully ultimately be the franchise answer for a decade, to be our Patrick Mahomes, okay? I'm not one of those guys where I'm going to die on the hill hoping I'm right. Drew Lock is a Bronco, which means I am pulling for you now. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm confident it's going to work out. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I don't think they may not be taking another quarterback next year in the 1st round. And I guess that's what bums me out. You know, to me, I think it does become a little bit harder for you to take a 1st-round quarterback next year. Now, I guess to offer Elway some defense, because I like the draft, and I think John's done a pretty good job. I mean, ultimately, who knows? We aren't going to know for 3 years. We say it all the time. Even last year's class, which was very, very good, has to come back and not fall into a total sophomore slump. You know, Cortland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, Bradley Chubb, they all got to come back firing. They all got to come back and be something. You know, I am super excited about Noah Fant. I really am. I thought that was a great pick. I thought trading back to get him was even better. But again, I don't like the fact that you gave up some of the capital to go up and get Locke. If you're going to go up and get someone, get the damn center. But, you know, that's just Andy talking. Again, I'm rooting for Drew Lock. But, and I'll say this, you have a better quarterback room and situation with Flacco and Locke than you had with Keenum and you know, Chad Kelly or whoever else last year. You know, Kevin Hogan's a young guy. We'll see there. I don't know. To me, I wish there was some veteran dude, you know, I'm trying to think, like a Derek Anderson who you're praying doesn't ever really play for you, but he could come in and kind of be the guy that is the true mentor, the backup quarterback who's accepted his role, that knows a team's never really going to be his. That's the dude you want behind Flacco helping Locke, in my opinion. You know, Brett Rippon, we'll see what happens with that. He's got a nice family lineage. Sounds like he'll at least be practice squad bare minimum. So I'll be a little bit curious to watch what he does. But, you know, overall, whatever. I just am more worried about Flacco getting things down. It sounds like the guys are sensing his leadership. He truly is the alpha dog in the room. Now, I am curious. I know Emmanuel Sanders has put some stuff out on social media about running, saying he's going to be 100%. We'll find out. I hope you're right, too, E. I'm rooting for you, too. Rooting for you to come back and be the guy we need you to be. But, I'm a wait-and-see guy. I've covered the league a long time. What you do right now doesn't matter. Unfortunately, I felt bad. Jake Butt took Twitter talking about all the Twitter doctors and people questioning whether he's going to make it or not. His teammates stood up for him. I would say this to you directly, Jake. I am hoping that you ultimately become the tight end that we saw flashes of last year. The red zone threat, everything, the mini Gronk, all that kind of stuff. I just worry about your knees. And I do not blame the doctors or anybody else for not being able to go all in until they know your knee can hold up. You've gone 3 straight years with a knee injury, if I'm not mistaken. 3 straight seasons anyway, because you didn't play the 1 year, your rookie year, because your knee wasn't right. So, but I hope Jake Butt gets right. If you have Jake Butt, Noah Fant, Jeff Hiram, you got 3 quality tight ends in this offense, that could be deadly. Remember, Kubiak and Shanahan got together, and in the late 2000s, they were running all sorts of multiple tight end sets. So there's definitely a lot you can do with multiple tight ends and so on and so forth. So I'm hoping Jake Butt shuts us all up and proves us that his knee's going to be fine. I don't question that he can be a player. I know Jake Butt can be a player and a threat. I worry about the knee ever staying healthy. That's all. So I hope you're right, man. I hope that you come out on top. The Chris Harris saga on Wednesday, Mike Kliss tweeted out that they've at least exchanged. He talked to Chris Harris as an agent. They've at least exchanged offers. The dialogue has started. That's at least a positive step. I hope it works out. You do not get better by trading Chris Harris. That's just the way this works. I'm sorry. You will never be a better football team by trading a Chris Harris. And I know some people are saying it's too big a contract to give a guy his age. Look, the price is only going to go up. And you know what I thought was so interesting this year? Don't do what the Raiders did. Don't be the Raiders. The Raiders, look, you trade Khalil Mack, then you go and try to you draft a pass rusher with your first pick. Seriously? You had Khalil Mack, so why did you trade him? You had what you needed. So now you're trying to draft what you traded. It doesn't make any sense. Now, the Broncos didn't draft a cornerback. But, look, you're not finding a Chris Harris out there. You've got Chris Harris, so just roll with Chris Harris. That would be my hope for this and how I hope this all ends up and how I hope this all works out. So we'll see. The Avs, I think, got screwed. I don't know if they'd have won the Cup. The San Jose Sharks, that offside call. You know what? We are going to get together. So when I get you your next podcast episode, because I'll go ahead and wrap this up, but I want to talk to Jason Hirsch and Mark Stout. To me, has the time come where if the replay, for me, if replay is not going to make it better, do we need to keep living with this? Is it worth it anymore? Because it's not making it better. I mean, again, I'm recording this on a night where there was a hand pass and they couldn't somehow review that. So, that's my question. I mean, everybody said what I think is interesting is it wasn't an offside so much as too many men on the ice in the substitution. If we're going to go by the hardcore definition of the rule, it should have been too many men on the ice. And I don't know if they're allowed to review for that either. So then can the Sharks actually review for too many men on the ice? It's just so stupid. It's just so technical. Hockey needs to I don't know, do they need to let more things get reviewed? Because it doesn't feel like you're getting it right anyway. So I just wonder, at what point do we just give up on the replay thing? The Kentucky Derby thing annoyed the crap out of me. The Kentucky Derby, really? I didn't know we could have a replay in the Kentucky Derby either. And I get it. I guess the movement affected all the horses. I heard Von Miller talk about that. Great. Fantastic. I don't care. The best horse that was supposed to win the race won the race. The Avs went out there and they scored a goal the way they were supposed to score a goal, right? That's what I'm watching sports for. I'm not watching sports for the genius coach that catches the technicality on replay that he can phone in and then get a goal get a goal disallowed that would have at least sent the thing into overtime. So I'm watching sports for the moments that happen and the great plays by the athletes. I'm watching for the horse to win the race. I'm not watching for us to decide that something was reviewed in minute form and I'm not watching for the pinky brushing the basketball that changes the possession. I'm just not. And maybe I'm wrong. I want to see the athletes play out. I want you to get things right, and I think we need replay in a lot of cases because the sport moves so much faster. All of them do. But it's become something where we're looking at so many technicalities. It's not fun to watch as a sports fan, in my opinion. So that'll be one of the things we tackle on the next podcast. We'll get to some pop culture, of course, as well. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Sorry it's been a hiatus. We'll get back with some of the normal crew next time. But have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you hopefully in a week's time on After Hours with Andy.